Hi there, this is Matt at State of Flux. It is July 1st of 2022, and that means that this decade of the 2020s is a quarter of the way through. We are done with 2.5 years of cinema, ladies and gentlemen, so I'm going to give you my quarter of a decade list of my top 10 choices for the best films of the decade so far. This is all going to be in alphabetical order. However, the first one that I'm going to talk about is actually my favorite film of the decade so far. And it is rightfully so, because it is the Oscar winner of 2021, Coda. Coda is a beautiful film. It's about the child of deaf adults. And you follow young Ruby, who just wants to live sort of a life of normalcy, but is tethered to this family of deaf people, and she's sort of caught between the two worlds. She wants to chase her dreams of being a singer, a performer, and this film finds the balance between these two storylines in such a compelling way. This could be, like, if viewed from like a distance, a kind of almost saccharine melodrama that is something you would see on Lifetime, yet is done with such care and with such exquisite performances from every single performer in this film, that this should have taken all the Academy Awards. And granted, it won all three that it was nominated for, including Best Picture. However, this film should have had a Best Actress, Best Actor, Best Supporting Actor, everything, everywhere. It's just, it is that fantastic. I cannot sing the praises of this film enough. The musical elements of the film were really moving. It is a great coming-of-age story, if not the greatest coming-of-age story that I have seen, like, since childhood, since I needed growing up, you know what I mean? Cannot sing the praises of Coda enough. If you haven't had a chance to watch it, it is on Apple Plus. Check out Coda. Moving on to Da 5 Bloods. This is Spike Lee's Netflix original picture that explores the Vietnam War, and you follow 5 former war vets who go back to Vietnam to find this lost gold that they had discovered there during the Vietnam War. And they go back and discover that though time has changed and age has hit them, that some of the social injustice that they were fighting for or presented with has never really changed. And this is an interesting exploration of the Trump-era politics that did not get the praise it should have, especially for Delroy Lindo's performance. That man deserved an Oscar, and he was not even nominated. A criminal act, if you ask me. Check out on Netflix Spike Lee's best film since Do the Right Thing, Da 5 Bloods. Moving on to another film that was sadly overlooked at the Oscars is The Last Duel, directed by special guest director Ridley Scott, because for all intents and purposes this does not feel like a Ridley Scott film. It feels more like a Ben Affleck and Matt Damon film, in that they are the screenwriters as well as lead actors, and they bring the same creative energy and control to that story that they did when the last time they teamed up, which was Good Will Hunting. This film is the Brett Kavanaugh trial set to the tune of the Middle Ages, also based on a true story, showing you that time never changes. We're doomed to repeat the same misogyny over and over again. This also uses the interesting framework from Rashomon of telling the same story multiple times through different perspectives. But it isn't until we are given the feminine perspective that we are seeing any form of truth of what has happened. And it is an incredible screenplay that deserved a nomination and is so just shocking that it didn't get nominated for Best Adapted Screenplay. And it, more than anything, deserved a nomination for Jodie Comer, who was so great in the movie. She gave the best performance last year by any actress, anybody, honestly. She was that good. Moving on to a documentary feature that did win the Academy Award, that is My Octopus Teacher. This relationship of a diver who gets befriended by this octopus and lives with this octopus for the year of this octopus's life is the most compelling thing you will ever watch. You will learn so much about aquatic life and nature through this film, and it recontextualizes sort of your spirituality within nature in like incredibly compelling ways. The photography is just stunning, and the relationship that man and creature can have if they learn to coexist is inspiring. And this was one of my favorite films of 2020. I was so happy it took home that Oscar Gold because it deserved it. Moving on to another film that I thought deserved Best Picture, which was Promising Young Woman. Thankfully this one was nominated, and thankfully this one won its screenplay nomination because it is the best screenplay of the decade so far. It is a perfect film for the Me Too movement, and incredibly relevant now. The politics of how the structures of our world are designed to hurt women are explored wonderfully in this revenge fantasy that doesn't go the way you would expect, and that can be, the subversion that it takes can be kind of off-putting for some people, yet I thought was bravery at its finest. I wanted a different outcome than we got. However, the reality of this and the conclusion of this film is a brave, bold choice with excellent performances, but Emerald Fennell's screenplay should be reviewed in Screenwriting 101. It is that exquisite. Moving on to my second choice for best film of the decade, which is RRR or Triple R. This movie people might accuse me of recency bias just because it came out so recently and it's getting a lot of publicity online. This film you can watch on Netflix. It is an Indian film out of Tollywood, and holy cats, this movie is the best action movie I have seen in decades. It has the energy of a young Robert Rodriguez and John Woo, and that is saying something. When they had energy when they were young and when they were taking creative control of their works and taking chances, they were firing on all cylinders, and that is this film, firing on all cylinders at all times. It delivers the best action sequences, the best musical sequences you will see this year, and ties together two historical figures out of India who never met in this fictional adventure. Imagine, if you will, taking like Gandhi and Malcolm X, two people who, to my knowledge, never met, but, you know, they could have. And what if they had met and had a crazy epic adventure? This is that movie, and you should be watching it now on Netflix. It's 3 hours long. Trust me, you will not feel it. This movie slaps. Moving on to Pixar's Soul. This movie is sweet and brimming with inspiration. I loved it. It won the Oscar for Best Animated Feature and is Pixar at, their finest. There's not a lot to say about that. This is a great exploration of the meaning of life and learning to come to terms with one's mortality and legacy. And there you have it. It hits all the Pixar beats and will pluck those heartstrings like a fiddle. or some kind of jazz musician, because it's a movie about soul music and stuff. Alright, moving on to Sound of Metal. This is one of the greatest experiential films I have seen. The soundscape for this film is so immersive. You feel like you are living the experience of this heavy metal drummer who is losing his hearing. And when you're confronted with the reality of the life that you know suddenly turning irrevocably in a direction that you don't know that you can handle, you are on this staggering journey. This movie is about to hit the Criterion Collection in September, I believe. Pick it up. This movie is incredible. And was one of my favorite films of 2020. Moving on to an unsung film from last year that did not get the praise that it deserved, however, it did pull a nomination for Kristen Stewart. Kristen Stewart or Kirsten Stewart? Miss Stewart in Spencer. Spencer is a sort of would-be adventure of what if Princess Diana took agency in her own life and didn't play by the rules of royalty. And this movie is a beautiful what if. And it is got one of the greatest performances I've seen in the past few years. Kristen Stewart, for my money, honestly was robbed for that Oscar. She was that good. This movie is also stunningly beautiful. And it's like so understated. The whole film. I was watching it for a good 45 minutes before it hit me how much I was invested in the film, and by the film's end, I was like emotionally attached to the movie to the point where I didn't want to let go. I wanted to keep living with this Princess Diana and see her thrive in a way that we did not get in reality. And this is a beautiful once upon a time what could have been. And I suggest you watch Spencer. And last movie I'm going to mention is the movie that took the world by storm, Spiderman No Way Home. Is this movie just fan film the movie? Kinda, yeah, but you know what? I invested 20 plus years with these characters, with this storyline, and it hit me. It worked on me in every way, and the thing is it doesn't break the continuity structured within the film. I don't think it's a spoiler at this point saying that this is the film where Spider-Man meets the other Spider-Men. Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield join in the action, reprising their roles as Peter Parkers, respectively, as the multiverse opens for Spider-Man and all of his old enemies start coming and attacking Tom Holland. But these aren't his enemies, these are the enemies of the other Spider-Men. And you are brought on a story of redemption where Tom Holland has to try to learn the values of power and responsibility in trying to save and redeem those whom society may not allow you to, or even want you to necessarily save. But more than anything, Spider-Man in the MCU is a guy who's relying on others. He's relying on Tony Stark to save him. He's relying on being the legacy representative of an Avenger once the Avengers have fallen. This is the film where Peter Parker learns to rely on himself, and it's done through beautiful visual symbolism when he has to match wits with the other Peter Parkers. This is Peter Parker getting his true origin story and learning to live life on his own, free of the confines of the MCU. And it is a great film emotionally, a great film in terms of action. The only thing I'll say is that it's probably the least good-looking Spider-Man movie. Like, the other movies directed by Sam Raimi are in a league of their own visually. They have their own visual language that is stunning, whereas the Tom Holland interpretation kind of looks bland. And it wouldn't have been entirely that noticeable had they not had the post-credit scene where you see a glimpse of Sam Raimi's Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where you see the Raimi visual language represented through Doctor Strange, who also is in this film, and it's just kind of like you sit there and, having watched this nearly 3-hour film, to watch the best-looking presentation of that film in the final 2 minutes, directed by the guy who used to direct the Spider-Man movies of the Spider-Man that's in this movie as a cameo. So anyway, it creates its own meta mess when you're trying to examine it. That said, Spider-Man No Way Home is worth your time and is the blockbuster of the decade so far that isn't RRR. You should check that out on Netflix. I'm going to go through the list one last time. We have Coda, which you can watch on Apple+. The Five Bloods, which you can watch on Netflix. The Last Duel, which has a buy-rent window. Check it out. It's fantastic. My Octopus Teacher, which you can watch on Netflix. Promising Young Woman, which I believe at one point you could watch on Netflix, but that might actually be on HBO Max now. However, it's somewhere streaming. Check it out. It is, up next is Triple R, or RRR, which you can watch on Netflix. Phenomenal movie. What are you doing not watching that? What's wrong with you? Soul on Disney Plus. Sound of Metal, which you can watch on Amazon Prime. Spencer, which you can watch on Hulu, and Spider-Man No Way Home, which has a buy-rent window that's not streaming anywhere. Last Duel might actually be on HBO Max, come to think of it. Anyway, check out those movies and let me know what is your favorite film of the 2020s so far. Thanks for watching. Peace.